Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In this episode, we interview Carrie Marie, who is a faith-filled wife, mother of three, and a cat mom who is very passionate about empowering moms to live a happier, healthier, and more abundant life. In addition to hosting her own Holistic Mama Speaks podcast, she is also the author of the book Mom Mantras, the daily affirmation guide for mothers of all kinds. Join us now as we explore her story.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a breath. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Well, hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene, and welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story. I'm really excited today because we've got Carrie Marie Vaughn all over from the US today, and Carrie is our first guest from the US. And not only am I excited that she's our guest, Carrie is also Charlene and mine's personal business coach and life coach. So I'm so excited. I feel like it's the student interviewing the master here. So thank you for joining us, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It's great to have you on board. And if we can get this show started, what was it like for you? Like, who was Carrie before she started getting into the whole life coaching and wellness coaching business?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very honored and excited that I am the first one from the US. That's pretty amazing. And so the old me was just kind of, I think, living in a blur. It seemed like it anyway, because all of a sudden years went by. I'm like, what just happened? And it kind of clicked when I found myself very, very unhealthy. I was overweight. I had been going through lots of health problems for over a year and a half, and I had no idea what was going on. The doctors couldn't figure it out. I ended up going for more testing and finding out I had ulcerative colitis. And I was told I had to be on medication for the rest of my life and might require surgery down the road. And that was really scary and eye-opening for me. I was like, wait, what? I am a mom. I have 3 kids to take care of. I work. I'm doing all of this stuff. I don't have time to be sick. I also did not want to be on medication. That kind of scared me a little bit there. And I'm like, I have to be around for my kids and my grandkids and everything. I can't continue just falling down this spiral, this downhill spiral. And so I just decided right then and there, and it's kind of awful that it took a scare like that to wake me up to the fact that I was just going through the motions of life and not prioritizing myself or my health, not paying attention to it at all. It's one of those things I'm glad it did wake me up so that it didn't get worse, so that it wasn't anything even more major. But I feel like I wasted a lot of my life of just, going through the motions and not really enjoying it, not really taking in and taking a moment to enjoy the life that I was living. And definitely I was not prioritizing my self-care. And I'm a huge proponent now of self-care, as you may know, because it's just so extremely important. And so when I had this wake-up call, I started doing research. I'm like, okay, how can I heal? How can I start feeling better? How can I start paying attention to my well-being? How can I start living a more fulfilling life? And so, of course, it was challenging. I was used to living the old life, It's so easy to just fall back into the same habits and same routines and kind of forget that, I'm on a mission to be better, to be healthier, to be stronger, to be a better example for my kids. So that was definitely a daily challenge. So does that answer your question?
Carrie, would you say that, obviously with any autoimmune and ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune disease. And I know I've shared openly with you about my autoimmune condition as well. Would you say that there were external factors at the time that contributed to that triggered that? Stresses as being a mum? I'm not really sure what kind of lifestyle you have in the US. Like, it seems pretty hectic for what we watch on Hollywood, but that's Hollywood dramatization. Do you believe that it was that triggered your body's response?
I do have a feeling that, first of all, I was eating unhealthy. I was eating a lot of processed food, and that has a lot of additives and all kinds of chemical nasty stuff. I wasn't paying attention to what I was eating. I was just eating, anything that was quick and easy and on the go. And so lots of processed food. So that is definitely also what I think is a trigger. But also the fact that, yes, I was living a pretty hectic, crazy, busy life. My kids were much younger at the time. And as I mentioned, I have 3 of them, and they were all into sports and clubs and activities, scouts, dance, gymnastics, this and that. And so I was kind of, in addition to working full time and having a household to take care of and, try to spend time with my husband, which we really pretty much spent time with each other at games. And it was just, running. It was just never stop. And so I think that the lack of time to just sit and breathe and relax for a moment, and the added stress of just everything going on in life and trying to make ends meet and all this other stuff, and then the eating unhealthy, not moving my body as much as I should have. All of those, I think, were all factors in the fact that I had this. But when I started cutting out all of those things, guess what? I healed myself. They say that ulcerative colitis cannot be healed. I literally asked the doctor that. I said, and I specifically asked about the food thing. And I was like, can I just eat something different? I don't want to be on medicine. Can I start eating differently? And they're like, oh no, food has nothing to do with this. I'm like, really? Because it's my digestive system. It kind of would make sense if food was a factor here. And when I started eating healthier, but also started moving my body, relieving stress, doing things to manage stress, because of course we can't relieve all the stress. We can't make stress go away. There's always going to be stress. But when I could start working with it a little bit, started taking time out to do a little bit of prayer and meditation time, just be with myself for a few minutes, relax. I started feeling better and feeling better and feeling better. And it was a journey. Of course, it wasn't instant. Everybody's used to instant gratification, instant everything, but it was a process. It took years, and I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still, there's always something we can be doing for ourselves, right?
What do you feel was the biggest obstacle for you during that process?
I think the biggest one was I still had a busy life. I couldn't cut out my kids' games and activities. I couldn't cut out my job. So that was the biggest factor of, okay, I need to now start taking care of myself in addition to still having a busy lifestyle. And so that was definitely the most challenging thing, I believe, of just trying to shift into a healthier lifestyle while being busy at the same time. it's doable for sure. I did it somehow. But that was definitely a challenge for sure. And being tempted by some unhealthy options, for food. It's easy to swing into somewhere, and get takeout.
Carrie, I'm just wondering, like your whole program is around, you've written a book called Mum Mantras, and you're a real advocate for balancing mums' lifestyles. And I love that you have a podcast. And when you talk about your book in the podcast, you say it's not about, it could be for mums, it could be for anyone who's pet mum or a mum to anyone. So it's not about biological motherhood. So that is definitely your thing. As a mum, when you made this transition, what was the family like? Was there like resistance? Was there like, oh no, it's healthy food? Or did they come on the journey with you?
No, I think that they were definitely excited to have me feeling better because they were sick of having me sick. Because it was definitely a struggle. And I don't know if you're aware, but with ulcerative colitis, you can't be more than a few minutes from a bathroom. And so that really made traveling, we loved camping, and it was very difficult to camp. I couldn't go hiking. I couldn't join the family for hikes. And so as much as it's like, okay, we're making some pretty major shifts and like, I'm going to need some time to sit and meditate, or, I'm going to switch up some of the foods that we're eating, or we're not going to go out for takeout very often. I'm pretty positive that they were just as excited for me feeling better so that I was not running to the bathroom every 5 minutes, because that was annoying. So there wasn't really that much pushback at all. I mean, every once in a while, of course, I'd get interrupted during a meditation or something like that, which, okay, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, I definitely think that everybody was very on board for this. Sometimes it does take a little explaining, okay, I'm going to get a massage or something like that, and I have to like leave the house because I am prioritizing my health. And that was one of the things that I didn't before. So it's like, okay. And then, my husband and I have been trying to do at least once or twice a year, little weekend getaways, okay, we want to make sure that our marriage is good. So we're going to try to put things on the calendar. We're going to go do this, or we're going to have a date night, where we didn't as much before. Although now at this point, our kids are much older. 2 of our kids have already moved out. It's craziness. Crazy how fast they grow up.
With you healing yourself, what was the transition into what you do now? Like, for instance, you're a coach, you're a wellness coach and a business coach, you're a social media influencer. Like, I think your life sounds pretty busy now. Not only are you a social media influencer, you've written a book and you're the host of Holistic Mama podcast, which is a podcast we follow and has some great tips and advice as well. How did you transition into this?
So I just knew once I started feeling better, I just saw a need for other moms. They were stressed out. They were not taking care of themselves. So I actually started this portion of my business and writing my book and everything at the very beginning of the pandemic, because I noticed that not only were moms stressed out and everything like that, this was adding a whole nother layer of stress and craziness in people's lives, and everything was unknown. And so I started by just posting on social media, just inspirational things to lift people up, try to make people happy, and kind of not forget about what was happening in the world, but being able to focus on something positive for even just a short amount of time. And I had actually wanted to start a podcast for a while, and I threw around different ideas and never really landed on something until I realized that there was a need, that moms need to know that there are other ways of healing, that there are ways of being happy, even when you are living a busy lifestyle. You can be happy in the moment. Even if you're not to your goals, you can enjoy the journey along the way to get to your goals. And so I wanted people to realize this. And I noticed that something that was super helpful for me during my healing process were saying affirmations. I would say affirmations to myself every morning in the mirror. I would write them down. I would listen to them. They've just been such a huge, powerful part of reminding me of who I am and how I am important and how I am worthy of so many great things, and I can be healthy. And that was one of the huge things. I was like, more people need to be saying affirmations. So I wrote my book, Mom Mantras, the daily affirmation guide for mothers of all kinds, because I want moms of all kinds. And I mention all kinds in the title Because as you were saying before, it's not just for biological moms. There are a lot of people who play a motherly role in a lot of people's lives or in pets' lives. And so you might not have a child yourself to be able to benefit from it. And it's funny because I actually have one gentleman who follows me on social media. And anytime I say affirmations, I'll sometimes go live and talk about my affirmations. And he's like, and they're not just for moms too, they're for grandpas. And I love that because it really is. It could be beneficial for anybody. Anybody who needs to hear some uplifting words and say them to yourselves and really feel and believe them, it's for them. It just all evolved. It was one thing after another. I just started doing little things at a time and more things grew out of it as I saw a need for it. And of course, as you know, I have been asked to speak at the Faith Over Fear Business Summit this September in Orlando, which is incredible. It was literally a dream board moment for me when I was asked to speak because I have a dream board picture of me that I transposed onto the stage. And I was like, one of these days, I'm going to be on stages talking about the importance of taking care of yourself so that you can be better at things in life, including your business. Because if your health is suffering, everything else in your life is suffering.
It's so important. And I love the fact that you're talking about mantras. And I know, Charlene, you do a lot of talk about affirmations and mantras during your meditation workshops as well. Can you speak more into that as to the effect that it has on someone when they're rewriting their story? Because I can see the passion around that with you.
Oh my goodness. Yes. They're so powerful. And what I found is that when I was saying some of the affirmations to myself, first of all, one of them was, I am worthy. I didn't believe it at first. And I kept repeating it and I still wasn't believing it. And so this is actually something that I talk about in my book, because sometimes you'll say affirmations and you could say them and you could say them and you could say them, but then you're not really feeling them or believing them because you've kind of gone down the wrong path a little bit in your belief for yourself. And so some of them aren't going to sit right with you. And so I talk about having to kind of shift your thoughts around it. Why am I worthy? Ask yourself this question. Even if you can't answer it right then, it does something different in your brain. It has your brain start thinking in a different way and giving you proof of why you are worthy. And it's pretty incredible because it uses this little part of our brain. I believe it's called the reticular activating system in your brain, where it's kind of like when you've been thinking about buying a car and you're like, oh, nobody drives this kind of car. So I'm going to get this kind of car because this is what, I'll be totally different than everybody else. And you buy it and you drive off the lot and all of a sudden you see one and then you see another one. And then next week you see like 5 more. And you're like, what just happened? Did everybody go out and buy the same car at the same time as me? No, all of a sudden your focus is on something different because you are aware of it. And, you've made your brain start thinking about that. It's actually pretty amazing how our brain can turn off the stuff that's not important to us, because otherwise we'd be going crazy. Can you imagine being in a crowded place and hearing every single thing that everybody was saying in the whole world? Like that just it would not be beneficial. It would be really chaotic. So it's the same type of thing when you ask yourself this question, when you're saying your mantras, if you're saying them and not feeling them or believing them, when you start asking yourself this question of why am I? All of a sudden it turns on this little trigger and then you start seeing different things in your life as to why you are that thing, whatever your affirmation is that you're not really feeling. Maybe it's I am beautiful. And maybe you kind of feel a little yucky. You're not really feeling beautiful. You can ask yourself, why am I beautiful? How am I beautiful? Any kind of question like that, phrase it into a question. And all of a sudden you will start seeing proof. Might not come to you immediately the second you ask the question, but just by asking, you're going to start seeing it throughout your day. The more and more you start asking yourself that question, all of a sudden, you're going to start being able to say it. I am beautiful or I am worthy. And you're going to feel it and you're going to know it and believe it. That's how much more powerful they are.
It's so powerful. And it's really interesting because you're mentioning the reticular activating system. Charlene and I talk to each other a lot about that. And we have this phrase that we've made up and we say, just stick it in your Raz, stick it up your Raz or stick it in your Raz. And just this week, we did a whole series of posts about sticking it in your Raz. So That's so important.
Cheeky.
Yeah, it's so important. So thank you for sharing that. Self-care and self-love is very important to you. And I know that you've spoken to us a lot in our coaching sessions. And for our listeners, we actually meet once every 2 weeks and we go through what we do. And Carrie's been instrumental in actually this podcast for us as well and launching this podcast. So again, a big shout out to you and a big thank you for that. But when we, obviously before we go into coaching sessions, there's a little bit of chitter chatter, and always I hear you doing like red light therapy, or you're doing, fasting, you're doing particular modalities to hack your body into wellness. Talk to us a little bit about that and how over time you discovered these. Like, I had never heard of red light therapy before meeting you, for instance. They're very unique to me, and I know you too. So yeah, tell us about these hacks that you use.
So I actually get connected with a lot of people through doing my podcast. I've connected with so many people who offer different types of modalities and healing. And so I have been exposed to some that I had never heard of before myself through just by interviewing people for the podcast. And red light therapy was not one of them, actually, but it was something that I found just in my research. I'm doing research a lot. I started doing the research on different ways of taking care of your body way back when I found out I had ulcerative colitis, and it has not stopped, and it probably never will, because not only do I want to be able to try out different things for myself to see what will help me feel better, what will work, from the inside out, but I also like to be able to share what's working for me. I always like to share my journey, because if any part of what I'm doing to help myself could help somebody else, it's even more powerful. And so red light therapy, I happened to find out, I read about it in a blog post, and it happened to be that within the same week of reading about it in a blog post, I saw there's a doctor that I follow on Instagram, and she has been doing red light therapy, and she posted about it. And I was like, this is too much of a coincidence. I need to research this more. If I ever have something crop up more than one time within a few day time span, I know that there's a reason for this. God is putting something in front of me, like, pay attention. I had to clue myself into different things because of this. And so I started researching even more, all of the different benefits of it. And I realized that it goes deep, it even helps with bone health and everything. And in cellular health, I was like, this is something that I need to start trying out. So I started researching different ones that were rated high, and I happened to put it on my birthday list. And I'm like, okay, if I get it as a gift, then I'll start using it. And sure enough, my daughter got it for me. My oldest daughter got it for me for my birthday. And so I've been using it ever since. And it's incredible. It's really easy to use. It's not hot heat or anything like that. So even if it's a hot day, you can just sit there with the light on you, and you can actually use it for different parts of your body. So I usually have it sitting there in front of my face. And so that's kind of like on my chest and my face. But you can also, if you have, like an achy back or something like that, you can actually use red light therapy on your back. I've seen people use it on their joints if they have arthritis or anything like that. They'll use it directly on the spot that's been bothering them on a regular basis. And so thank goodness I've been taking care of my body, so I don't have all of those aches and pains like some of the other people experience. So that's why I kind of just let it soak into my face. I do it actually during my prayer and meditation time in the morning before I start my day. And it's been pretty awesome. I mean, I feel great. And I think that's the thing, is it's not like an immediate thing. It's not that I'm necessarily feeling better than I did before, but I'm not feeling worse. That's for sure. And I know it's working on the inside. So that's how it's going so far. It's been a couple months.
And I love that you alluded to, you've interviewed so many people, you're learning so many modalities. What roles has mentors played in rewriting your life story?
Pretty big, actually. I've learned a lot about different ways of taking care of myself and just different ways of handling different situations through a lot of my mentors. And so it's, some of the people that I've interviewed for my podcast, I've learned things from them. And, of course, you can probably, actually, I don't know if you can tell behind me, I've got loads of books, and I have another couple bookshelves downstairs because I'm reading all the time. I want to learn from other people. If somebody else has figured something out, I can learn from them. And so maybe it's time management that I'm learning from somebody, either from a book or a podcast or listening to a training. I sign up for trainings. And now that the pandemic is over, I'm so excited to be able to actually go in person now again and attend things in person, because there's something about the energy in the room and meeting other people who are on their journey as well in all different aspects of their life. So some of the trainings I go to are around business, and then others are on, life and wellness things. And there is just something incredible about connecting with other people who are also on their journey. You can always learn from each other. It's kind of like, how we can learn so much just from a child. You can learn from each other all the time. And so I definitely think, and I know that mentors and other people I've met throughout my journey so far have played a huge role in just changing how I'm going about my life, how I'm able to help and inspire others through things that I've learned from other people.
Carrie, you mentioned before, you're very passionate about the whole self-care field. And I know that a lot of listeners will probably be thinking, well, it's easy to say when you're so busy. A lot of people just see that self-care is just a luxury rather than something that, that's necessary. And a lot of people like that, they're very service driven, like yourself, might be thinking, oh, I can't do that because I'm taking away from family. So how would you address that with someone?
Yeah. And that was a huge thing that I had to realize for myself first, that it is not a luxury. It's very much a necessity, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we better take care of other people? And especially for moms, but any other kind of caregiver, maybe somebody's taking care of an elderly parent or anything. It's kind of like that airport thing, the flight attendant tells you to put on your ear mask first before you help other people. And it's like that with self-care. You need to take care of yourself. You need to feel good. You need to be happy, healthy, before you can better take care of other people and be able to take care of other things in general, not even necessarily other people or pets, just to be able to live your life fully. You have to be in good health, and you have to be happy too. You could have six-pack abs and muscles, but if you are unhappy, if you're stressed, depressed, anxious over everything, that's why my podcast is Holistic Mama Speaks, because it's the whole, as a whole, you need to be taking care of yourself, no matter how busy you are. It's so important, because you're so busy, to be able to carve out that time. I heard a quote one time, and I don't remember the exact words, but it's by Martin Luther, so you'll have to look it up. And it says something about when there's craziness in the world or whatever, or when you have too much going on, that's when you need to carve out more time for prayer. And that's so true. And I totally butchered that. Is not exactly his words at all, but it's something like that. With the crazier life gets, or the busier you are, that's when you actually need that self-care even more. That's when you need to sit in prayer and meditation even more. That's when you need to prioritize your health and well-being, because if not, your life is going to run you rather than you running your life. And so even if it's a matter of setting your alarm 15 minutes early in the morning and just having 15 minutes to yourself before the rest of your family wakes up to do something for yourself, or maybe it's a matter of, I actually have a friend who will sit in her car and listen to a podcast or a meditation or something like that for about a half hour, so that she can just separate herself from the hecticness of the house, family, pets, everything else is happening in the house. So she'll go out in her car and sit quietly and listen to a book or a meditation. So if that's what it takes, or if it's on a lunch break from work, or a little bit on your way home from work, maybe you just stop for a little bit, walk in a park. Self-care comes in so many different forms, and it's whatever feels right to the individual. So self-care for me might be completely different than self-care for you. Some people might love to lounge in a bubble bath and listen to soothing music and sip a glass of wine. Others are like sitting in your own filth. Oh, I could never do that. That is far from self-care, And so it's like everybody is so different. And so it's whatever feels right to you. For me, I love being in nature. Anytime I can get out for a walk or a hike, or just even walking in my yard in bare feet and, taking in nature, that's relaxing for me. And it's funny because I'm inside right now, but as you can tell, I have all kinds of plants behind me, because I like to bring a little bit of nature inside, so that I still have a window in front of me here so that I can see out to nature, because it's something that is helpful for me. It's not for everybody. Maybe everybody was like, there's bugs and there's animals and there's, ew, grass, dirt. But so that's why self-care, finding the right self-care routine and pattern and things might take a little bit of time. You might have to try something out. And that's what there are so many different modalities out there. And there's so many different things that could be self-care. So you try something out for a little bit. If it's not feeling right and it doesn't seem soothing and relaxing to you, try something different. Sometimes people love working out. And I'm not saying that I dislike working out, but I don't find it a form of relaxing self-care for sure.
It's really interesting. I think when some people think self-care, they think money, like massages, pampering, spa days. But what I'm hearing for you, it's not about that at all. You don't have to put money towards self-care. It's whatever you find joy out of.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. If you feel joyful, if you feel peaceful, that's self-care.
Like, for instance, you mentioned so many modalities there. And Charlene is really good at self-care, and she's the bathtub with the bubbles and the aromas, sitting in her own filth and the candles. Whereas that for me, it's not that I find I just get overheated, I get stressed, I'm like, I'm going to get out of here. I don't find that relaxing at all, which is true. But, so my self-care. So what I'm hearing, it's definitely experimental. It's definitely finding what works for you. Where would you suggest someone starts in this journey?
Well, most everybody at least knows one or two things that make them happy, that brings them joy, or that makes them feel at peace. So first of all, start with those things that you know for sure. But then you can just try out different things. And if you happen to listen to my podcast, that has a lot of different things on there. I had people who offer all different types of healing modalities, and a lot of them you could either hire somebody for, or you can find videos on YouTube that have tutorials on different things. And I hope it's okay, but I have a self-care planner that I have created that helps people to think about self-care in a little bit of a different way and help prioritize it and plan it out. And so this is it for those who are actually watching. And so every day there's a thing for every single day, and it has you tap into your mood. What are you feeling? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it kind of meh? And just paying attention to what you are grateful for. That's also a form of self-care, practicing gratitude, whether you're saying it, thinking it, writing it down, the different things that you are grateful for, because that shifts your mood. You can't be upset or sad or anything like that at the same time as you're grateful and happy for the things and celebrating things that you have in your life. And so if you can start shifting your mind into a more grateful and in a gratitude state of mind, that is going to help you get through the day. So there could be forms of self-care that are not necessarily sitting in meditation or taking a bubble bath, but it could just be a matter of, let me take a few seconds to think about some things that I'm grateful for. It could be a matter of that, or slow breathing, taking time to just pay attention to your breath. It's something we do all day, every day without thinking about it. But if we can just take a few moments and think about the breath and pay attention to how it feels going in your nose and then blowing out, doing something just as simple as that can help ease your stress just in moments. And there's just so many different things like that people can do. So it's a matter of just trying things out, doing some research on your own, paying attention to things like, if anybody wants to get the self-care planner, I can give you the link that you can pop on your website to grab that, because I think it'll just help in people realizing that there's not just one form of self-care. There's all different kinds of self-care, and it's whatever feels right. And it's just doing research and finding things that you might want to try. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, oh well, it's not for you,
Yeah, that's really powerful. The Carrie that was 10 years ago to the Carrie that is now, would you say they're totally different people as you rewrote your story?
I would say so, yes. I'm definitely much happier and healthier and definitely less stressed. Before, I feel like I was always known as the person who was a little bit happy as far as people that I hung out with. And I always, I think I always tried lifting other people up. it kind of runs in my family. My mom is a minister, so she is always in that helping mood or mode, I should say. She's always helping others all the time. So I think a little bit of me fell into that. I taught Sunday school for years. So in addition to doing all the other stuff I told you, I was also teaching Sunday school. But I think that in being able to, even though, I shouldn't say I was unhealthy before or unhappy. I mean, I was unhealthy. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't really happy. And so I think there's definitely a difference there in, kind of being that person to lift others up, but then really, really feeling happy yourself,
What role has spirituality played in your transformation?
Well, I've grown up in the church. And so I've always sang a lot. I've always prayed. And it's funny because for years, I never actually even started reading the Bible, like from the beginning to the end until recently. And I never really sat and made sure that I was praying throughout my day every day. It would just be kind of as here and there or in church, but I wasn't letting God into my life as much as I should have been. And it wasn't until I started going on my own self-care journey that I started realizing, I need to have God be in my life a little bit more. Even though it's not like he ever went away, God was always there. But I wasn't building my relationship there. So now I feel like it's a part of my everyday life. I start my day with it. I pray throughout the day. I just think that having that time in prayer, and I combine it with meditation in the morning, because I think that sometimes like sitting and really meditating in the words are even more powerful, because throughout the day, of course, it's here and there. If I hear of somebody who is in need, I'll ask God for help in whatever need they have. It's kind of it's been a little bit of a journey along that line too.
Yeah, and it definitely plays a part in self-care, whatever people prescribe to us as spirituality. It plays a huge part in someone's life.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess you're taking your focus off yourself and your own problems for a moment, just to really think outside of that box, think outside of yourself, and allow that spirituality to come in and really sort of help to give another level of guidance and direction in your life.
Now that you've rewritten your story and you're healthy and you just radiate so much joy, you spark so much joy when we speak to you every fortnight, even on this podcast, where do you see your life evolving? Where do you see your journey evolving in the next 6 to 12 months?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I feel like, and I love that your podcast is Rewrite Your Story, because I feel like we're always rewriting our story. There's always new things that we want to accomplish, new things that we want to try. And we're always growing as people, we're always getting better. And so I see myself just being able to help people in a bigger way and being able to impact even more people. And it's actually one of the things I pray about each morning is, how can I impact and inspire thousands? And it's one of those things that I can now see that I have another book that I've started. I have a course that I'm in the middle of writing right now. And I can see myself on more stages and not necessarily on an actual stage, but among a lot of people, so that I can be helping a lot of people. And I also would love to I don't know necessarily it will be in the next 6 to 12 months, but I would also like to start hosting women's retreats where we can do a little bit more hand-holding of helping people realize their potential and their purpose and who they really are. And because a lot of the times, especially with moms, and this is why that's kind of my niche, our moms, is because a lot of the time we're so focused on our kids that we really forget about who we are as human beings. Like, we're just known as mom, like so-and-so's mom. And we forget who we really are and what we're passionate about and our purpose here on life. It's not just to be a mom. It's so much more. And so I think that having women's retreats, especially geared toward moms, will really help the moms realize that. But it's also a form of community. They're going to form bonds on this where they will have lifetime friendships that are formed out of these retreats. So they're not in this alone. They have people, not just me, because we should all be helping each other. And so they will be able to have these relationships that they can then take home from these retreats and have tools that they can use in their own everyday life to be able to live a more fulfilling and purposeful life.
Yeah, that's great. You just reminded me of something when you said that, and I've just written it down because I wanted to ask you to speak into this. So in the last maybe 6 months, I've been talking to a lot of mums and dads, but not seeking them out, just in general conversation. And what I've noticed is a lot of stress, a lot of not stress, but a lot of breakdown in who the person is once the children leave the home. Mm-hmm. And what I've identified is that a lot of people, a lot of parents put their identity as being mum and dad. And then when the children leave home and they're no longer needed, it's like, who am I now? And there's almost this depression, and statistics shows that in that period, there are a lot of breakdown in relationships and actual divorce as well. And when you just said something about knowing who you are, you're not just mum. And it just reminded me of that. And I know it's an issue here in Australia. What would you say to people that are putting too much of their identity in being parents and not crafting their own identity?
Well, I definitely think that they should, first of all, carve out the time to take care of themselves. But even sometimes, like journal writing is really helpful for this. Because when you can start journaling about things that are important to you and that you love and enjoy, and start focusing a little bit, being a little selfish. It's okay to be selfish in your own journal. So talk about, I think that parents feel guilty being a little selfish or taking time to do the things that they enjoy doing. But if they can start just journal writing all of the things that they love and enjoy, and it could be things that they haven't done in a really long time, since before they were parents. But if they're writing those things down, but then also write down all of the things that they would love to try to do, or that they would love to experience, and have it, they're kind of like their little wishes, maybe someplace that they want to travel to. Maybe it's just trying a different kind of food. I mean, it could be super simple and basic, or it could be really extravagant. It doesn't matter. Just write it all down, and having it in a journal will, first of all, be helpful in just getting it out. Because a lot of the time it's been hidden so deep within for so many years. And it might take many, many times of writing in the journal to actually get all of the things out that they love and enjoy or that they want to do. But the more they start writing that down, then schedule something in. Every once in a while, schedule something in. Either do something that you love to do. And for me, it was horseback riding. I actually had my own business coach encourage me to go horseback riding. It was something that she asked me. She's like, what is something that you have been wanting to do for a very long time? And I was like, that's such a great question. Horseback riding. It just came to my mind like that. And so literally I got off the phone with her for my session, and I made an appointment at 2 different places to try out horseback riding. I hadn't ridden since I was 11 years old. And so it had been about 30 years and I hadn't ridden horses. And so I thought, I'm going to try out a couple different places. I had my lessons at a couple different places, very much disliked the one and very much loved the other. And I've been going there ever since. And I am just so grateful that I made the decision to do something for me that I enjoy doing. And I encourage people to do that all the time. Maybe you love to fish. Maybe you love to do crafts. Maybe you love to, I don't even know, go hiking. But you don't prioritize that. You don't prioritize doing the things that you love to do. You need to start scheduling it in. It doesn't necessarily have to be once a week at first, especially if you have a busy life. But you know what? Life will go on. It's okay to miss a kid's practice here or there if it means that you're doing something that you love once a month or a couple times a month. It's okay. And so I highly recommend that that's how you kind of figure out who you are, by doing the things that you love. And also, how I was mentioning earlier about how my husband and I try to have a little weekend getaway here and there. It's okay if the kids go to a grandparent's or a friend's house for a weekend so that you can have alone time with your spouse. Because that's the thing you were mentioning. Sometimes people end in divorce after their kids grow up because they don't have that relationship with each other anymore. Their relationship was only about being parents rather than, loving each other and spending time with each other and doing things that they love to do with each other. And date night doesn't have to be going out to dinner. It could be going miniature golfing. Do you have miniature golfing in Australia? Oh, you do. Okay. It could be trying something new. It could be anything, but just that you're spending time with each other, having conversations with each other without the kids. And it's so powerful. The more you start prioritizing yourself, your well-being, doing the things you love, spending time with your spouse or even friends, maybe you don't have a spouse, but, spending time with your loved ones away from being a parent, you would not believe all of a sudden your like real self, your true self just starts bubbling out. And you know what? You're more happy when you're with your kids because you have taken that time that you need. It's amazing. You're actually a better parent because of it. And you're setting a good example for your kids because you should be doing something that you enjoy. We're always telling our kids, go off, have an amazing life, do the things you love. We're always encouraging our kids. So why aren't we doing it to ourselves? So I have found that that's been a huge part in my own journey, but that I also encourage other people to do.
So in fact, being a mentor to your own children as well and setting an example.
And I guess what I'm hearing from you is identity comes back to self-love and self-care.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
And that's a real bit of a light bulb moment for me. So thank you for that, because I didn't, obviously we put our identity in everything we do, who we are. And it's coming back to the core. It's coming back to your true self, your true values. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And, I really hope you do those retreats in the future because I think they're going to really inspire a lot of people and bring a lot of healing. And not only that, you have access to so many people through your podcast and modalities that it's going to be a wonderful journey. Can I ask, was there ever in rewriting your life story, because you said, you had a full-time job, you were working, was there ever any fear associated with making this leap and this change and going out? Because, you're doing a podcast, there's no financial gain, you don't make a podcast and make money. You don't make, all these things and make money. So you left a life of security almost to launch out on your own. Was there any fear associated with that? And how did you overcome that?
There have been many fears all along the way, and I still face fears every day. I feel like not really every day, but on a regular basis because I push myself. I never did this before. I was always just too afraid. And so then I never moved forward with things. And that's why it took me years to actually start a podcast because I was kind of afraid. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, I'm just going to leave that alone. And, there's been many times where I've been faced with things that were very fearful. And so I just didn't. And then when I started pushing past my fears and doing things just because I knew it was the right thing to do, and that I knew it was going to grow me and I was going to be able to impact more people, the more I started overcoming those fears and just doing things anyway, stepping way out of my comfort zone a lot of times, the more I started realizing, wow, I just did that. Like that was awesome. And it felt so good that I did something that I was able to push past my fears and do it anyway. Then it's like, ooh, what else can I do? And then it's not so bad the next time you're facing a fear because you're like, you know what? I did it last time. I was okay. I ended up being okay, and some of the things that we're afraid of are kind of silly in a way. When you take a step back and think of it as somebody else, as an outsider, you're like, why am I even afraid of that? Like, this seems so silly. It's a little thing like sending a message to somebody, like if I have to send a message or a voicemail to somebody who's, I think is way more successful than me. And I want to ask them like if they'll be a host or not a host, but a guest on my podcast or anything like that. It's a bit scary. I still get nervous about doing a lot of things. And then I'm like, you know what? This is silly. Is anybody going to die if I make this phone call? No. Is my health going to deteriorate because of this phone call? No. Is the other person's health going to deteriorate? No. So guess what? It's not a big deal. I'm making more of a big deal in my brain, in my head. I've got all these things going on. I need to just stop and just do it. And that's really the thing. I don't know if you've ever read Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule, but that actually helped me a lot getting past a lot of my fears because I was just like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just go and just do it. No thinking about it. I'm not going to let myself think about it. And so, yes, there's definitely been many fears that I've faced and I'm still facing them. It's a part of life. We're going to be faced with things that are scary, but it's either face those fears and get past them, or live in a life that you're not happy with.
We love that book. Like, we'll revisit it at least once a year, put it on Audible. I'm more of an Audible person than we listen to it at least once a year. We'll cycle back to it. So thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful.
So we usually have a couple of questions at the end. And one of them is, what advice would you give to someone to rewrite their own life story?
I think I've already talked about a little bit, is just, the trying out new things to start taking care of yourself, because that's going to be such a huge part of your journey. No matter how you want to rewrite your life in whatever form, I think you really need to have that love of yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to accomplish anything? And so that's the main thing, is really finding some true self-love, unconditional love for yourself, and really living into that on a regular basis. And, just journal writing about all these things, all of these ways that you could be living your life, all of the things that you love, all the things you want to do, who you are as a person. The more you can write these things down, the more real they are. That's what I would say. Start taking care of yourself, because you need to start loving yourself.
Absolutely, so true. And Carrie, if you were to go back and rewrite your own life story, what would it look like today?
I think I'd probably take about the same path. I mean, now that I know more things, I would have a little bit easier way out. Maybe it wouldn't be quite so hard. I would have jumped on things a little bit quicker, or I would have started taking care of myself a little sooner. But, hindsight's 2020. I'm very grateful that I took the path that I had. I think we are faced with things for a reason. There's always lessons we need to learn, and we grow stronger because of those things. And so some of the things we could maybe wish that we didn't have in our life, we are always faced with challenges, sometimes way major than others. And it's okay, because they made me who I am. And so I think that however our story goes, in whatever way, even if it's challenging, is perfect. It's the way it's supposed to be.
Carrie, thank you so much. And Charlene and I are so grateful for everything that you do for us as one of our coaches and mentors, and everything that you've taught us. And we're actually really excited, because we're going to meet you hopefully in person in September at that event that you're going to be a speaker at. So we're really excited about that. So if you want to know more about Carrie's book, Mantra Mamas,
Mantras.
Or you want a copy of her self-care plan, they're going to be in the show notes and also on our website. So make sure you visit that as well. Carrie, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. You know what? Doing that interview, I'm really starting to notice the themes. Like, Carrie is so passionate about self-care and self-love. And if we look at a lot of the interviews we've done over time, there's definitely that theme around self-love. But I love Carrie's approach to self-love.
Absolutely.
It's about finding what makes you happy, journaling it, look at what it is, and finding what's congruent. And not everything's going to be a fit for everyone. Like, as we said, what works for you doesn't work for me.
And I noticed that, a lot of us tend to, we make appointments with doctors, we make appointments with, interviews or whatever it is, but we sometimes forget to make appointments with ourselves, right? And that's where we sort of lack in finding that time, we say, we'll do that when we get around to it, right? Or, I'll, take care of myself when I've looked after everybody else. But what good is that going to do for everyone else if we're not in the best place, right?
Yeah. And I think it's really important what she said. You've got to look after yourself if you want to look after others.
That's right.
And, even though her market is very specific to, and she said her niche is mothers, the skills are transferable.
Yeah.
The knowledge is definitely transferable. So, and as I said, Carrie is a mentor and a coach to us, and we've had the privilege of working with her for about 3 months now.
Yeah.
And we've learned so much from her when it comes to business. I think that didn't come through in the interview because it came all through her holistic healing side. But she's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to business as well, and social media marketing and TikTok, she's like the TikTok queen with what she does and all that. So she's definitely a world of knowledge. But again, she developed that through self-care and self-love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, is that because that really helps us to dig deep and find out what our values are, what brings us joy, and what we're good at. Because otherwise, we're just going through life without thinking, without like really considering every aspect of ourselves. We're just going full on autopilot in one way. And unless we take that time to really stop and think, okay, who am I? Like, who am I outside of what my role is?
Yeah.
It helps us to stop and think, okay, what makes me who I am?
Yeah. So rewriting your life story is really about learning how to connect with you and self-caring. I think that's one area that's so important. And I think Carrie's tool, if someone is willing to rewrite their life story and wanting to know where to start, her tool, her self-care planner is an excellent way to start as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.